Recording in progress.
Can anyone there hear me?
We can hear you, Gene.
Now I can. Okay, you must have been sitting in silence.
I had us muted. We have to record these meetings now, so just wait till we start to unmute them.
Twin Horse Mills, I don't understand them.
10 past.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right, good morning, everybody. We'll get started here with our November LEPC meeting. I'll have Becky do a roll call this morning.
Brian Bending. Tim Eichmann.
Here.
Beth McCormick. Here. Del Volper. Doug Guerin.
Here.
Deborah Robbins. Carl Moll.
Here.
Sue Morosky. Bob Damo. Sean Prust.
Here.
Andy Reddick.
Here.
Eric Rasmussen.
I'm here.
Todd Swinney. Janelle Tatro.
I'm here.
Allison Vaccaro. Here. Kaylin Rickman. Here. Jean Wallace. Here.
I'm here. I forgot to turn my lights on.
Here.
All right. Who else do we have online on Zoom?
Stephanie Schreiber is here from Oshkosh Defense. I think Sue Morosky is just going to be running late a little bit.
Okay. Is there anybody else online?
Jim was just trying to talk.
It was really quiet, wasn't it?
Just to check.
Oh, okay.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Second item on our agenda this morning is approve the minutes of our May 12th, 2022 meeting.
I move for adoption.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or corrections for the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is public comment period. Anybody have anything to say from the public or have any comments that were brought forth to any members from the public? Oh, well. All right, we'll move on. We have some nominations for 3-year terms to the board today. I believe all 6 of these people have agreed to stay on the board. So I will go through and make the initial nominations for these, if that's okay with them. Nominate Aaron Dressler to the LEPC. Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? Anything there? No.
Can you just say a little bit about the person? Who's Aaron?
Aaron is on Oshkosh Fire Department. He is, Brian Bending is slowly transitioning some things to Aaron. So Aaron's going to be taking the lead in Brian's place.
Kind of be your hazmat. Did we vote on that?
Yes.
Okay. Next, I'd like to nominate Bob Damo. He's the Highway Commissioner for Winnebago.
To move.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next nomination, we'd be Carl Moll.
So I'm safety officer with Ascension Health, so I've got responsibility for the 3 Fox Valley hospitals with Ascension. And representing the hospitals. I'm also the chair of the local HERC, so I kind of represent the HERC as well.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next would be Tim Eichmann with Winnebago County Sheriff's Office.
I'm with the sheriff's office.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who seconded?
Next nomination would be Sue Morosky, who is with Oshkosh Defense.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's to tell Bob that we already nominated.
I just made it.
Hey, Bob, you know what happens when you're late, right?
3 more years.
I think that was already on there.
Final nomination for today, I guess, would be myself, Emergency Management Director for the county, so I probably shouldn't nominate myself, so.
I'll nominate.
Thanks. In a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Well, thank you all for continuing to stay on this committee and continue to serve our community. Next on our agenda would be our spill reports. Hand over to Becky.
So if you remember last year or last meeting, our spill report didn't print quite correctly. So this, I actually went back a year, full year to do the spill report. So we have quite a bit on here. And I think that some of these we already covered just from the knowledge that some of you had. And then there was a spill reported
Still flexible.
Yes.
on Monday that I tried to pull off of the online report and it wouldn't pull off, so I just put in the information that I had from email.
Thank you.
You go there.
Thanks. It does look like a lot of spills from when you think that it's a whole year. Yeah.
But that cleaned it up really nice for us.
Good work, man.
I said, but you cleaned it up really nice for us.
Did my best.
Anybody have any comments or questions? I don't have any answers, but if you have questions, Beth and Janelle probably do.
Galloway is pretty common name on this one, and I've had been in the past as well. Is that storm drain in their loading dock area, or where is? I guess-
The drain, I was at both of these. The drain is kind of, it's near their loading dock, but they do have the inflatable balls that they place. They beat whatever's going there to it, so nothing ever left the facility at either of these. There was some incompatibility in the one where the tote was a problem. And actually, we have a meeting with them on the 30th of this month. We're gonna do a full facility walkthrough and evaluate their chemical storage because we just want to make sure they have a good handle on what they're using. Because when we got called out to this, we had no idea what was there. And so there were some unknowns that needed to be addressed. And so in the future, we're hopeful that we'll have all the information and better information. So and we are gonna make recommendations for some of the things that they use. Just because, right now, because as a result of shortages in a lot of things, a lot of chemical companies are offering options to things that aren't sourceable at this time, which may not be in the best interest of the folks that are using it, especially when they're maybe not trained to use it or don't really understand what they've got. And then in that result can cause some incompatibilities. So we're going to try to do some training and work through different things with them so that they aren't on this list often in the future.
So when was this being enforced before, incompatibility with another product or incompatibility with a container?
In both. It was one, we still don't understand how it flipped over. A 330 gallon tote is no small task to flip. So, we arrived on the flipped container and we, the material had been punctured as well. So that's where some of the incompatibility came in. And then one of the totes that was brought in by their vendor was also incompatible. Which after the transfer made it super fun. And, it was a challenge for a few days, trying to make sure everything was, and then. The material also was not supposed to be in a place where it was in motion, and it was set next to a giant compressor that vibrated it all night, and then. Ultimately, it wasn't vented, and a lot of things just. It was kind of if you could pick everything to go wrong that could possibly happen, that's what they had occur. You
What
said
were the reaction byproducts of the?
it was acids and hydrogen peroxide. It was in containment, but still, it's more reactive than, it's more exothermic than you prefer. So,
So you said that the vendor brought in extra tote would like to,
and the tote was not clean.
and the tote wasn't.
This is very common. I don't know if anyone's tried to source a 330 gallon tote lately, but they're about $1,400 and it takes about 8 weeks to get one. So,
Is that a double vault?
no. No, that's just how much they cost presently because there aren't.
If anybody needs a, we usually have about 60 a month.
You're one of the few people on the planet, really. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh, really? Yeah.
yeah, and it's the thing is new and clean and, you know, refurb and making sure there's no, and that's where the issue came in there. Just because frankly, simply everything in their facility is organic and you add hydrogen peroxide to that and you're reacting immediately. So.
Thanks for the information on that. Any other questions or discussion as far as this part?
Just to make a quick comment, I think this is really well done. And should answer most of our questions about what's going on, so kudos to whoever.
That's Becky.
Becky, great job, very thorough.
Thank you. I just pulled it off the DNR website, if I can get the DNR
Really?
website to work.
Okay.
It's very finicky.
The question on the Fox River Valley ethanol, the PFAS. Is, I don't know, in the past, we've never, I don't know, has things changed in relation to reportables and reportable quantities of PFAS now?
Deployment of a PFAS containing foam is a reportable quantity and in any point. Deployment, not if there's a fire, not for any reason, if it's spilled or deployed, it's reportable in the state of Wisconsin.
And in terms of, in this case, I mean, should we really, will we be seeing many PFAS reports for our facilities? I guess I'm just surprised to see this.
I've been to 6 this year, 1 in Winnebago County and then in other counties as well. So deployment of foam as a result of a fire, if your facility contains PFAS foam, is going to be called in a reportable, and then they make a determination if it leaves the facility and gets to soil or any impervious surface. Or pervious surface, at that point, a cleanup has to ensue. If it hits a waterway, that has to be done. Most of you probably saw the Menominee Marinette fire. That is an enormous PFAS release. I believe they've contained about 1 million gallons of water right now. And so these are things that, unfortunately, I think we're gonna see them for a while until the determination is made. Right now, no standards are set for PFAS, with the exception of PFOA, PFAS. There's like 37 different analytes within the unit. And until they set a standard on what's safe for humans to be exposed to, they're erring on the extreme side of caution and making everything reportable.
So the likelihood to see more is really more artifact of better reporting as opposed to more spills.
Right. It'll be reporting simply because it's never been reported before.
And is there a required phase out?
They're working on it, but there's nothing to replace it. They have found nothing. So the reality is, you know, a lot of the conversation I have is we're gonna get rid of the foam. That's great. Now what are you gonna do? Because if someone's life is in danger, are you gonna choose? The reality comes down to there's no alternative. FAA will not allow phase out of PFAS foam for airports at this time because it's the most effective option. So that foam, until there's an alternative that will work in a way that is approved nationally, it will still be in use and in place. But they are working on point source at most facilities where people use it. We're covered in it, guys. Makeup, skincare. If I'm gonna sample for it in parts per trillion, I can't shower for 2 days. I have a separate total of clothing. I have to wash it in special detergent. I cannot wear makeup, sunscreen, bug spray, and my shoes, my whole head to toe is a complete outfit that is PFAS free. But right now, if you have one waterproof thing on in your gear, you're loaded with it.
What is PPS? What is it?
It's so long. Elk, it's really long substances. Fluoroalkyl, I think it's substances, something along those lines. Yeah,
I mean, for general information, the surface waters, in our area have been tested and don't really show PFAS, and then there's a voluntary, private well program that, GHS has been administering, and we've been getting results from that for, the past month or so. We've got about 5 of them, I think, and most of them have come back undetectable. A few detects in the ones that, but still below any cause for, at least at this point, cause for concern, so.
that's awesome. It's typically around large airports, where historically there's been deployments, and then also in industry where paper industry or where they were using things as coatings like your frying pans, all your nonstick, it's PFAS. All of your pizza boxes that have that coating that it's slippery, so the pizza doesn't stick, PFAS. So what they're trying to do is eliminate and come up with alternatives so that we're not ingesting it because it doesn't ever break down. That's the concern. So they don't know what amount in your system it's actually affecting people and animals. So that's the reason for all of this. At this point, they're still working to determine what those numbers are. I can tell you parts per trillion is a challenge. I've sent one sample, it's collected the same day to 3 separate labs at $650 a sample for PFAS, and they came back a difference of 10,000 parts per trillion. And the DNR is requiring less than 20. So it's a challenging situation to be in right now for anyone that's having to do big cleanups like Tyco up in Marinette and things like that. Pembine, they have a lot of it up there. Their wells are all impacted and they're impacted in high numbers. So they're trying to figure out what to do with it. Because it also moves quickly in water. So we'll see.
And then the disposal method is.
Extremely expensive, beyond expensive. It is, there's one option for soil. Soil goes to Oregon via rail at about $25,000 per container. That's a 1 dump truckload. And water is traveling either to Alabama or to Oregon at about $18,000 to $25,000 per load. So the disposal cost is incredibly inexpensive. It's the transportation that's unbelievable. They were looking to see if they could make one of the Wisconsin landfills accepting of the material. And at this time, that has been completely ruled out. So whatever you put it in, it has to be fully contained. So there's one right now landfill in the country taking it. So
That's
it's
gonna fill up fast. I mean, they
Correct.
can't have infinite amounts, I'm sure.
right.
On the same topic. The DNR did a collection from our fire agencies. Thank you to our highway department. They were kind of our collection hub. So I don't know, we ended up with 120, 145 gallon buckets from our fire agencies. So thank you.
Through North Shore.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
thank you, Bob, and your staff for your help with that.
Our cold storage facilities have a containment floor, so I mean, we're a logical place to store it until we can ship it, so.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was one of those lovely state things that said, Emergency management will take care of the collection, don't worry about it. And I got the call and I'm like, I don't know what this is. So, we worked with Bob and got everybody's stuff collected and then taken back down to, that environmental company, so. I don't know if that's good or bad, but.
It's all,
let's go
well,
on.
I mean, if you don't have the opportunity that you don't use it, you don't have the issue. I think a lot of the firefighters, the fire stations that are local. I mean, they still have a cache because like it is necessary in a chemical fire, certain chemicals, you're not gonna put out water. Or you're gonna have to put so much water to them that it, it doesn't make sense. So, I think that's, they're looking to find alternatives. But as of right now, I don't know if we have any. So it's kind of a balance.
So even all the companies that are out there saying that they have a product that is PFAS free, it's not,
Be very, very cautious.
okay?
Anytime if anyone has a question about that, I'm happy to, I would talk daily with the PFAS team at the DNR. A lot of the SDS sheets say PFAS free, PFOS. And that's one of the 37, but that doesn't mean that one of the other 36 isn't in there. And if it is, it's probably present at a concentration that's higher than parts per trillion. So you may think you're good, and then you have a deployment, and then you're not. And then your cleanup is incredibly expensive. So it's difficult right now just because there's no other alternative, but at the same time, the expense is unbelievable and in some cases probably going to be a deal breaker for facilities. If insurance isn't going to cover it. And so that's where it's a challenge.
And like Beth said, just, be very cautious, because when we changed out our foam system 3 years ago, it was supposed to be PFAS free, and it was not. So
That was-
you
yeah.
spend all this money to change out your entire foam system to something different, thinking, and we were told, I have the emails saying, nope, you're good to go, the stuff is good. And then we had to release it, that's like, the stuff's not good.
And that, that's the conversation, unfortunately, that I'm having with a lot of the facilities that make the call, and it's hard because, it's their worst day to begin with, and now I'm gonna tell them it's really their worst day, and, it's challenging that is not being openly relayed by the industry that's dealing with it, it would have been, I mean, frankly, you may have made different decisions altogether had you known at the time.
Correct.
So, it's really important that folks know who they're working with and how, what their materials really are. And if there's questions, who to contact to get the answers they need to make sure they're covered. Because not only that, even if you change it out, there's a lot of conversations happening about how do PFAS free a PFAS system after it's already been charged. And in a lot of cases, they're finding that full replacement is less expensive than trying to decontaminate. Because you can never, it's very difficult to ever get it fully out.
And then just one last thing on that, as we were talking about, we didn't have a fire. It was a faulty wire that set off the fire suppression system. So as facilities get older, their equipment gets older, gets more, I mean, anything could happen. It was just a wire that was actually rubbing on something, and it was enough to break the connection and set off the system, which deployed the foam. So doing your
And
weekly
it,
or
of course,
monthly.
was that what, Saturday night in February?
So, everybody's systems, a failure is very possible that. And out of the 6, how many were just system failures?
3, half.
So we're even, if someone's not even a fire that caused it, it's just
Right.
the system malfunctioned and deployed it, so.
Yeah.
Shame on that bad little wire.
Right, right.
Any other questions or discussions regarding school report? Hearing none, I'll move on to the subcommittee reports with education and outreach and exercise. I didn't separate them on my notes, so if it's okay with everybody, I'll just kind of go through this all together. For my office, training requests as a whole They came up with a new process this year and we're required to request all of our trainings by the end of June for the next calendar year. And if there's money left in the budget, we may have another opportunity in December to request additional trainings. So my office worked with Calumet, Outagamie, Fond du Lac, and Brown to kind of say, what do we need to host in the region? And then kind of picked and chose out of that list. And so we have a fair amount of training hosted here in the region. Last week, we were supposed to host a PIO class that was postponed until January. The state switched the PIO class. So instead of the state class that a lot of us have taken in the past, we're now using FEMA's class. So if you have taken the old class and you want to do further PIO training through the state or through FEMA, you have to take the initial 105 class. So your old 291, which was WEM's class, won't count anymore. So just keep that in mind if you have people who are looking for that training. We hosted a shelter training with Red Cross last week. It's probably the first time since pre-COVID that they had that. Gene was there.
I was there. It was well done. It's good to see the turnout.
Yeah, it went really well. We had about 80 people there last week, so that was really good from all around the region. In December, we're hosting a recovery from disaster class. Second week in January is that PIO class. Also in the second week of January, EOC ICS interface. And then in February, emergency planning for special needs. And then as far as training, we were supposed to host a initial training with Nina Menasha last week. That got postponed till that second week in January as well. Fox Crossing, we're doing additional exercise with them in December. We did an exercise series with them in 21 into 22 and want to do one more functional. We got approved to host the hazmat class that was requested by the team. It's expected for the third week of May. We also were chosen as the regional coordinator for a hazardous material commodity flow study in a tabletop. So this will be a regional project. We're working with a consultant to do the work. We're just kind of the grant agent. So that's something that's in the works for the next year. Thank you. Outreach for us. We did a presentation to McMahon Engineering. They just kind of wanted to know about emergency preparedness. We had a booth at Winnebago County Mental Health. I was scheduled to teach a class at UWO Fox Cities that was postponed until the spring. And I met with one of our elementary schools this week to talk about emergency preparedness too. One other point, I don't know that this necessarily fits there, but as far as preparation or things like that, last week at county board, during our budget, they approved the funding for us to install a backup generator and do some equipment updates at Sunnyview Expo Center. And a lot of our planning and exercising and things like that, we identify that as a location either for reunification or sheltering. It's kind of the catch-all for everything. So it's something I've been pushing pretty hard for the last few years, and was very well supported last week when they approved that in the budget. So excited about that from a preparedness standpoint. Any questions on either of those reports? I lumped them together. So Becky, you want to do a report for us?
No, our plan of work year typically ran on the federal fiscal year in the past from October 1 to September 30th. And this year, WEM was able to secure additional funding and extend the plan of work year to the end of December, so that going forward, we will be on a January to December calendar year, which will be very nice. But so that has delayed the start of our new plan of work year. For the current year, we were required to do updates to 27 plans. I did 48, and 36 of them have been approved. And the region director said that he would have the rest of them done by the end of November, so cooking along.
Part of the reason that we did so many this year above and beyond was in our transition of staff last year, we got to the minimum. We're trying to do them on a 3-year cycle. So they're done 3 years instead of 4 years. It's just, most of the updates typically are contacts, right? People change positions, go from one company to the next, and making sure that we have those. And catch anything else and make sure that we stay a year ahead of the compliance. So thanks to Becky for catching us back up on that cycle, because when we were short-staffed for 9 months, we made sure we got our work done, but didn't get a lot of extra. So thank you for that. EPCA report. Any other discussion?
Just a couple questions on ground facilities. Many new facilities, any new substances that we should be aware of, any big changes?
I think I have 3 or 4 new facilities in the coming year that are going to be on the list. I haven't looked at them yet. So I don't know what chemicals they have there, but I don't think I had any new ones this past year.
So are you the only person running through those plans and finding facilities, or do you have a team, or how do you manage that? I ask because I know that, like out of gaming, we have several people that do help and review those plans and look for changes or discrepancies.
We do them in our office.
Oh, I wasn't volunteering. I could watch the.
Come on, Carl. Becky does a heavy majority of those plans. I do give them a quick glance over, and then Janelle approves them as well. But a lot of that's in Becky's hands, and a lot of those updates typically are contacts or quantities.
And that's more or less what it is in what I gave you to.
Right, and if there are major updates, I mean, that's something Becky and I talked through to see if there's something that majorly needs to change in the plan, especially if it's between that 3 years. A lot of times that, you'll have a contact change, or if there is a big change in a facility, when Hydrate got rid of chlorine, like, that was a big change that we did a full update of their plan, because that was the scary one, right? So when we were able to take that off, that was a sigh of relief for all of us, but also something that would be very important to be updated in that plan.
So, I mean, the discussion at some point of, the significant hazards that exist in the community is probably worth having, like an ammonia at Galloway, or I know there's probably a couple others. I mean, we don't have lots of big hazards here, but just for awareness, when we do have an incident at a location that we're kind of anticipating or expecting or knowing, what we might have to deal with.
Sure. I think that's a good idea. That's something Becky and I can work on, is to kind of pull that together to see, 75–80% of ours are batteries and forklifts. So I mean, that's small scale, but something like Galloway is, Janelle's facility, even though it's out in the country, is, also has a pretty large time.
Does the city still have the cache of chlorine they do for the treatment plant? That was one that when we went through, when I asked that question, I think they had a lot of big cylinders in there.
6 or 8, something like that.
6 or 8 of them, and I think that one was sufficient for a 4-inch rain event. So my question when we were there was just simply, is it necessary to maintain this level volume, just because if you do the math on it, that vulnerability is almost hit, it'll almost hit the other side.
Yeah, that's something we can certainly look at putting together. That kind of transitions into another conversation on the hand before we adjourn. Chanel's okay with it. In the past, pre-COVID, we had done facility tours. We talked about the treatment plant or Galloway. Those are two that we had done pre-COVID. Are we interested in starting to do those again? I feel like a lot of facilities are freeing up to that again. I find that interesting, I guess. And I know it's probably good for you guys to get out and see how other places are doing stuff too, and for us to look at some of those facilities that are either cool or a big risk, have the potential for a risk. So if that's something that we're in favor of, we would look at going back to that and finding a facility that would host us in our next meeting.
I think so.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other discussion today?
I've got a question. I want to go back to the spill report quick. With the spill at Cross Farms, were they levied a fine at all for the DNR on that? It's on the back, Cross Farms. It didn't say in there, but I'm just curious, it didn't seem like there was any malfeasance where they deliberately did anything, so.
I can speak to that frankly, just because of the volume. I was the DNR spill coordinator, and that volume and the fact that they responded, it would be unlikely they would mind.
You guys know the Slikes from Cross Farms? They're good guys.
Most farmers, I can say, I can count on one hand the number of people that were actually fined in a manure spill, even when they're catastrophic. Because typically, they're not intentional, they're typically accidental or a failure of a piece of equipment that, you know, isn't intended, and they always happen in the middle of the night. And they're found in the morning, and the farmers are always the first to be there to clean it up. So it's really unlikely, unless they're like a repeat offender that are intentionally doing something, that there would ever be a fine. It's highly unlikely.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any opposition to that? All right, we adjourn.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for your time. So Eric, how long is it gonna take to get that generator in on the